In today's video, we're going to find out what we've learned from Warhammer Community about the Goremongers of Khorne kill team coming to kill team. So they showed off a data card on the Warcom website for the Goremonger Impaler. What a charmingly named chap that is. 2 APL, 7-inch move, a 5-up save and 10 wounds. So he's as fast as an Eldar and as tough as an Orc. He comes with an auto pistol that you'll never use, 4 dice, hit on 4s, 2-3 damage, range 8, and a better gun, a flesh skewer, 4 dice, hitting on 3s, 4-5 damage, range 8, and some special rules. Before we get into the special rules, let's just work out what we've learned about this team. They are a standard APL2. They're going to be on 32mm bases. They've got a standard 7-inch move, a 5-up save, 10 wounds. Presumably the leader has 11 wounds. So that's a pretty interesting chassis before we get any further, right? Because like I say, it's as tough as an Orc and as fast as an Eldar. We also know from previous articles that we're getting 8 of them. So that's pretty nice. We can also guess that they're base shooting hidden ballistic skill, if you want to call it that, is going to be 4-up with different weapons, having that secret hidden +1 or -1 that we're familiar with from Kill Team, right? And I would hazard a guess that their basic melee hit's going to be 3-up, because after all, they're mainly a melee team. Now, the flesh skewer is alright as a gun, right? 4 dice hitting on 3s, 4-5 range 8, not bad. It's got stun, not bad, and then it's got drag and prey. Let's read those now. Drag. Whenever this operative is shooting with this weapon, at the start of the resolve attack dice step, before inflicting damage, you can move the target up to X inches. X is your total number of successful unblocked attack dice multiplied by 2. The target must be moved to a location. It can be placed as close as possible to this operative, determined by the X you choose to use. The move must be done in 1 or more straight line increments, and the increments are always rounded up to the nearest inch. Whenever the target is dropping during that move, ignore the vertical distance. Okay. So, you're rolling 4 dice, hitting on 3s. So you're hoping for 3 hits, let's say. If you get 3 hits, your opponent rolls their save. Let's say you block, they block 1. So 2 unblocked hits get through. That seems vaguely probable. Okay, so you'd be doing 8 damage. Not factoring in any crits you might have had. You'd be doing 8 damage potentially, which is nice. And you'd also get to move them 4 inches. So, the amount of move that you're going to get from these... I mean, look, you could get the full 4 through and then get to move them the full 8, which is the range of the weapon. That's pretty exciting. But chances are you're going to get to move them 4 inches. I guess that's alright, because, you know, you couldn't drag them. It's certainly going to be funny if someone's up on a nice vantage point and you drag them down and they get pulled out of position off their vantage point for sure. Let's look at the prey special rule. Whenever this operative is shooting with this weapon in the resolve attack dice step, after resolving the drag weapon rule if you choose to, you can discard any of your successful unblocked attack dice. In other words, you can choose not to inflict damage with any number of them. Now, there is a reason why you would do that. You attack them, you choose not to damage them because you want to pull them into combat with you and finish them off in melee with your melee attack, or have a friend finish them in melee. Because we'll look at on the next slide, your team gets bonuses for killing people in melee. But this is just sounding a bit convoluted to me. You've got a reasonable gun, decent odds of doing 8 damage, which would kill you know, a humanish operative, and then you're going to forego some of that damage maybe because you're then going to hit them with your flesh skewer stab profile and hope to finish them off that way, which is taking an extra action to do. It's a bit, I don't know. You pull them into combat. I mean, the likelihood that you're pulling them into combat with the Goremonger, they'd have to be standing 4 inches from you, right? And then you shoot them. Well, you got 1 inch melee range, so 5 inches. And then you could shoot them, pull them in, and then hit them. Although, who just leaves the operatives 5 inches away from you? Chances are you're going to move and then pull someone 4 inches, and then maybe you've got a friend that can hit them. It feels like a lot of faff. Let's look at Gore tanks. So this was the other rule that they gave us. So Gore tanks, getting close to your kills is important, as the Gore tanks carried by operatives can only be filled when somebody dies within arm's reach. They start half full, and each half can be expended to activate one of 6 powerful Sanguivitae abilities, which range from healing grievous wounds to adding APL, handy for picking up mission actions between all the killing. So, just to unpack what they've told us there, all our models have Gore tanks. The Gore tanks can hold 2 charges. They start with a charge in them. You want to get kills in melee so you can fill your Gore tanks. You can spend a charge to get one of 6 abilities, of which we've seen 2 of them. Rejuvenate, during your activation or counteraction before or after it performs an action, you can regain 2d3 lost wounds. Mania, during your activation before or after it performs an action, you can gain an APL. So given that you start with some gore in your Gore tank, you could move, fire your grappling pistol, and then fight, and then refill your Gore tank. And then, presuming you can eat 2 Gore things in the same turn, you could then go on to heal or something else, or gain it. I presume you can't do the same one twice in an activation, but it sounds cool, right? They are powerful abilities, and a lot's going to hinge on what the other 4 abilities are that we haven't seen for sure. But I can't help but thinking slightly negatively. Apologies if people are really hyped for the Khorne guys. Like, if you're playing the team because you love the idea of muscly Khorne fellows screaming blood for the blood god and hacking people up, I'm sure that you can have a nice time playing them. But to me, it feels a bit overly complex. I've mentioned sort of Rube Goldberg teams before. I'm conscious that not everyone is going to know what a Rube Goldberg machine is. Perhaps the most iconic version of a Rube Goldberg machine is the sort of the venerable game Mousetrap, published by MB Games, where you build the little Rube Goldberg machine, and then you turn the crank, and that hits the stop sign into the boot, which kicks the bucket, which rolls the ball bearing down the stairs, down to the chute, and then it bonks onto the scaffold, which drops, if you're very lucky, it drops the green ball off the diving board into the bathtub, and it lands on the seesaw, and then the seesaw pops the diver into the bucket, and then if you're really lucky, the diver landing in the bucket causes the mousetrap to fall and clatter down the hole, trapping a mouse on the cheese. But reminiscing about my childhood board games aside, this team feels like that. You're trying to do this thing where in an ideal world it's like, well, I'm going to shoot someone I can see, pull them towards me, then hit them, and then because I've killed them in combat I get a buff. Or in the slightly more realistic scenario, because people aren't just going to park in front of you, you're going to move around the corner, shoot someone that's already activated, pull them towards you, and then they can be charged by another model in your model's next activation, and then that model can gain a 3rd APL or heal. And all this is set in the context of a game where we have Marines who just have 3 APL and shoot you twice with their bolters. And, you know, I don't have a problem with teams that have this internal complexity that ask you to build the mousetrap if what they give you when you line everything up, when you get everything to work perfectly, is actually really strong, is actually stronger than a simple team, right? That should be the, if you're gonna have, I think there's room for these complex teams. Some people obviously really like them, but if you're gonna have a team that's complex like this, that is building a Rube Goldberg machine, the result when you line everything up and get everything to work perfectly needs to be stronger, doesn't it, than those simple teams that just, I walk forwards and I shoot him, and then I have a bolter and it has P1 and he just dies. Now I do understand. One, we're dealing with partial information, so this isn't me writing off the new Khorne team at all. This is just me sounding a note of caution. I have a bad feeling about where this rule set is going. It feels like it might be heading towards a frustrating play experience. But I do understand you have 8 guys, Marines are 6, they have a 7-inch move, and there may be loads more rules. And it may be that when they get going and they start filling their Gore tanks, they feel really, really powerful and cool. And I hope they do. The problem is, in the current version of Kill Team, where there are 3 objectives, having 6 guys doesn't feel like a massive handicap for the Marines. So the fact that you've got 2 extra guys and extra movement is not nothing. Doesn't necessarily feel to me that that's something that you can leverage to make up for the fact that you have to be playing so much harder because you're playing against your own team to do all this stuff to enable your real true sort of power level. Now, I've heard it said by, inspiration, Mr. Glandy Glass Half Dead, who I was in his live stream the other night, and he was saying, like, oh, well, it's not an elite team. He likes the word shenanigans. It's not an elite team, so it has to be a shenanigans team. I don't think that's true. I could conceive of a team. I think Kazakin would be probably the best example of this. You can just make a team where there are 10 miniatures, say, and each of those miniatures is quite straightforward to use, and individually they are obviously all weaker than Space Marines, but the power that those 10 models just have at the start of the game equates the power that 6 Marines have, and both things are quite basic kill teams. I don't actually, you remember I've got my 4-quadrant graph, which I've shown before, which is sort of Horde and Elite on one axis, for how many models there are in the team, and then tricks versus stats on the other axis. Now, is it the case that non-elite, so like 10-man stats teams, are inevitably really bad? Kazakin are like the worst performing team at the moment, aren't they, if you look at the stats? So maybe Glandy isn't like factually correct that it was inevitable, but maybe he's sort of de facto correct in that whenever they've tried to do a sort of straightforward stats-based team that isn't 6 elite guys with APL3, it's kind of sucked. And all of this was somewhat true in the previous edition, but the big difference is, I guess, and the thing at its very core, the things that's causing all this angst whenever a non-elite team is given to us, is we have 3 objectives now. When we had 6 objectives, you'd be like, oh, wow, I've got 8 guys. Marines only have 6 guys. Yeah, I'm a little bit weaker, and yeah, I have to do all these things to try and get to nearly the same power level as a Marine. But hey, if I do all these things, I'll be nearly the same power level as a Marine, and I'll have 2 extra guys. And those 2 extra guys really felt like they meant something in the previous edition. Whereas I'm really not sure now, with only 3 objectives on the table, like I say, I'm not sure you can leverage the 2 extra models into a win in the same way. Now, maybe I'm wrong, right? As I frequently express on my channel, not actually very good at kill team. But I would just pose the question, with a team like this, where you're having to build the mousetrap, right? You're having to kind of get all your things in this ideal circumstance so that you can pull the guy in and then wound him in combat rather than just shooting him in the face. The thing that you're building has to be really, really good. You have to get a reward for being able to play your own team to defeat their internal game, right? Because the problem with any, and this is for any war game, the problem with a team that's on some level playing against itself, it's trying to fulfill its internal personal quest, if you like, right, in order to do its thing. And I certainly get, and this has certainly been happening to me in other games I play as well. You get so caught up in fulfilling your personal quest, in making your synergies work and doing things, and then someone comes along with some miniatures that are a team that is, Space Marines or something similar, that's just like, well, all my guys are just straightforwardly good in isolation, they're just going to do their thing. And it's then much easier at a lower skill level to win with the more straightforward thing, but then B, at the high skill levels, if you want to concern yourself with that, like, it rarely seems to be the case to me that the complicated thing wins out, especially in kill team. The complicated thing doesn't always seem to win out against the simple thing, even when it's piloted perfectly. Right, I think that is a real problem, not necessarily with the current edition of Kill Team. It's a problem with approved ops. I really think that when the next approved ops deck comes out, which is reasonably soon, it's this year, maybe they'll go back up to 4, 5, 6 objectives. I mean, that would mean they'd have to package a token sheet. We all use third-party tokens, but for the new player experience, right, they'd have to package a token sheet with the deck. But that doesn't seem like it's beyond the wit of James Workshop. Let me know if I'm dead wrong. I could be. I've not played Kill Team now in a couple of months. I'm still keeping my hand in with all the news and stuff, but it's just me calling it how I see it. So let me know what you think. I feel like I'm being overly critical of the Khorne boys here. I will say, having the ability to move an opponent, maybe off a point to where they're no contesting the point, if you look at it that way, it is quite cool and novel. There aren't many abilities in Kill Team where you can move your opponent like that, so by itself, that's pretty cool. It's not the first time we've seen it by any event of Stretch the Imagination. There's a couple of others, Brood Brothers, Night Lords, all have things where you can move your opponent's stuff. But it's interesting. I'm interested to see the whole picture. But yeah, I'm not optimistic. Sell me on it, and that's your challenge. If you read this and go, "Hey, that's wicked cool," I want you to sell me on it in the comments and share your thoughts. I say thank you to all my members, subscribers, supporters, etc., who are keeping me going, keeping well, they're not keeping the lights on. My day job is keeping the lights on, but they are taking the sting out of the inevitable purchase of the next Kill Team box, put it that way. And I am, even though I've just kind of panned these revealed rules, it's important to have a reality check that even if everything I say is correct, everything I say is based on a tiny glimpse of information. And ultimately, never forget, and this cuts both ways, but never forget, when you buy a Games Workshop product, you're paying for the miniatures. Rules are ephemeral, rules change, they'll rebalance, they'll balance data slates, new additions, blah, 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 blah. Whether or not you buy this or don't buy it shouldn't be based in any way on what I've said about the rules today, and it should be based simply on, do you like the minis, do you want them in your collection? Really the only question you need to ask yourself. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you again next time. Cheery, 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 cheery. Bye, 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 bye. Come into the live stream tomorrow and tell me why I'm wrong. Thanks, bye.